Okay, picture this. A woman, Lisa Allen. For years, she was, well, kind of stuck. Smoking, drinking, overweight, debt, the whole 9 yards.
Right.
But then something just clicked. One tiny shift in how she saw a cigarette, and bam, a chain reaction.
Uh,
6 months later, she's not just smoke-free, she's running marathons. Her diet, work, money, everything changed.
wow.
And scientists even looked at her brain scans, the old patterns, gone, overwritten by new ones. Her brain literally changed.
That's incredible.
And Lisa's story, it really highlights something profound, doesn't it? Something William James pointed out way back.
Yeah, over a century ago. He said basically that our lives are just, well, a collection of habits. A mass of habits was his phrase.
Right, a mass of habits. And it makes you think how much we're actually choosing versus just running on autopilot.
Exactly. We like to think we're in control, deciding everything. But there was that Duke study back in '06.
Oh, yeah, I remember reading about that.
It found, what, over 40%?
40%.
Of what we do every day isn't really a decision. It's just habit.
Mm.
What we eat, how we talk, exercise, or don't.
That's staggering, and it massively impacts our health, our work, our happiness.
Absolutely. And that's really our mission for this deep dive, isn't it? To unpack how these habits work, on the individual level, but also in companies, even whole societies.
Yeah.
We'll explore how they shape us, often totally under the radar, and crucially, how we can actually, change them.
Okay, let's unpack this. What really strikes me is just how deeply these patterns are wired into us. I mean, how do scientists even start to figure that out, to see how embedded they are?
That's a great question. And it often starts with some really striking cases. Take Henry Molaison, usually known as HM.
The famous memory patient.
Exactly. After surgery for seizures, he completely lost the ability to form new memories. Couldn't remember meeting someone minutes later, couldn't recognize his own house sometimes.
So his memory was essentially frozen.
Frozen in time. But here's the kicker. He could still form new habits. He learned to navigate his new home, find the bathroom, even though he had zero memory of ever doing it before.
Wow. So memory and habit are separate things in the brain.
Precisely. That pointed scientists towards a specific area deep inside called the basal ganglia. Think like a golf ball-sized lump of tissue.
Okay. And that's not where we form conscious memories.
Nope. It's a more primitive part, kind of like what you'd find in reptiles. It handles automatic behaviors,
What?
habits.
Got it.
And you have those MIT experiments with rats in the early 90s. They put tiny wires in the rats' brains.
Right. Maze experiment.
Yeah, the T-maze, looking for chocolate. Initially, the rats' whole brains were firing like crazy as they figured it out.
Lots of effort.
Right. But once they learned the route, once it became automatic, all that brain activity quieted down, except...
Their basal ganglia.
Exactly. The basal ganglia took over. It showed pretty clearly this structure was key for running these automatic routines, these habits, even when the conscious brain wasn't heavily involved.
So, HM, the rats, it all points to this primitive, automatic part of the brain running the show for habits, separate from conscious memory, which explains why they feel so powerful, almost out of our control sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But if they're automatic like that, maybe we can understand their structure, maybe even reprogram them.
That's the crucial insight. And the structure scientists identified is what they call the habit loop.
Habit loop. Okay.
It's basically a three-step pattern. First, you've got the cue. That's the trigger.
Okay.
Second, the routine, the behavior itself, the habit.
Right.
And third, the reward, what your brain gets out of it, why it wants to do it again. Cue, routine, reward.
Cue, routine, reward. Simple enough. But once that loop's set, is it permanent, like etched in stone?
Well, here's where it gets really interesting and maybe a bit scary. The habits, the neurological pathways, they don't ever truly disappear.
They don't.
No, they get encoded. You can override them with new patterns, stronger patterns, but the old ones are still there, lurking.
Like shadows in the brain.
Kind of. Think about Eugene Pauly. Similar situation to HM, severe memory loss, could remember his grandkids' names,
Right.
but he could still follow complex routines. Make himself a snack, brush his teeth, go for his usual walk around the block. The habits were intact, even though new memories weren't forming.
Incredible persistence.
It is. But the brain, unfortunately, doesn't differentiate between good habits and bad ones. It just runs the loop.
So that's the danger.
Exactly. A bad habit, once formed, is always waiting for the right cue and reward to pop back up. Think about, say, fast food. Most families don't plan to eat it multiple times a week.
No, it starts as a treat, maybe.
Right. But then subtle cues, maybe driving past the golden arches after a long day and the easy reward. Slowly, it becomes a habit. Often without anyone consciously deciding. The brain just follows the path.
So these patterns are powerful, deeply wired, but they're also delicate in a way. Understanding the loop cue, routine, reward, that's the blueprint for change.
That's the absolute first step. Understanding the loop gives you the map.
Mm.
But just knowing the map isn't always enough to get you to change course, is it? There's another crucial ingredient.
Okay, what's that?
It boils down to craving. Neurological craving.
Craving. Tell me more.
Okay, so researchers worked with this monkey, Julio. They taught him a habit. Touch a lever. When certain shapes appear on screen, get a drop of blackberry juice.
Simple reward.
Right. Initially, Julio's brain activity spiked after he got the juice. Pleasure response to the reward.
Makes sense.
But as the habit got stronger, something fascinating happened. The brain activity spike shifted. It started happening the moment Julio saw the shapes, the cue.
Before the reward.
Before the reward.
Yeah.
His brain started anticipating the pleasure. The cue itself triggered a neurological craving for the juice. That craving is what really drives the loop.
Wow. So the anticipation, the wanting becomes the engine. Can you see that playing out like in the real world?
Oh, absolutely. Think about Cinnabon. Why do their bakeries always smell so intensely?
Yeah, you can smell them from miles away in a mall.
Exactly. They deliberately position them so that amazing smell wafts out, hitting you before you even see the store. By the time you turn the corner, that craving is already building. It's almost subconscious.
Sneaky. So they're manufacturing the craving.
Precisely. And this isn't new. Look at Claude Hopkins, the advertising guy back in the early 1900s. Pepsodent toothpaste. Back then, hardly anyone brushed their teeth regularly. Hopkins needed to create a national habit.
That'd do it.
He followed basically two rules. First, find a simple, obvious cue. Second, clearly define the reward.
Okay.
His cue was tooth film. You know, that fuzzy feeling on your teeth. His ad screamed about it. The reward, beautiful teeth, a winning smile.
Pretty standard rewards.
Yes, but here's the genius part. Pepsodent had ingredients like citric acid and mint oil that created this cool, tingling sensation in the mouth.
Ah, an unexpected reward.
Exactly. People started craving that tingle. It wasn't just about clean teeth. It was about feeling clean. That sensation became a powerful reward that cemented the habit. Within 10 years, brushing went mainstream.
That's amazing. So it's not just the obvious reward. Sometimes it's a subtle feeling we learn to crave. So how do we use this? How do we redirect that craving engine to change a habit we don't want?
Right, that leads us straight to what many call the golden rule of habit change.
The golden rule. Okay, I'm listening.
It's surprisingly simple, yet powerful. You keep the same cue and the same reward, but you insert a new routine.
Keep the cue, keep the reward, change the action.
Exactly. Let's say you want to start exercising. Studies show you're more likely to stick with it if you pick a specific cue, like lay out your running shoes the night before, or go running right when you get home.
Okay, makes sense.
And you need a clear reward you actually look forward to. Maybe it's the endorphin rush. Maybe it's tracking your progress on an app. Maybe it's, I don't know, a smoothie afterwards. Something your brain learns to crave. That craving pulls you through the routine.
So find the trigger, find what you really get out of it, and then swap the middle part.
You got it. And probably the most powerful large-scale example of this in action is Alcoholics Anonymous.
AA. Yeah, that's always fascinated me. It doesn't seem, well, scientific on the surface, but it helps so many people. How does it fit the golden rule?
Well, AA was started by Bill Wilson back in the 30s.
Yeah.
He was deep in alcoholism himself, tried everything. Then he had this intense spiritual experience during detox.
Right. The story goes he never drank again after that.
Never. And he built AA. Now, it might look unscientific, the steps, the higher power stuff, the meetings.
90 meetings in 90 days.
Right. But underneath, it's a massive habit change machine. It forces members to identify their cues, what situations, feelings, times a day trigger the urge to drink.
Okay, isolating the cue.
Then it provides a new routine. Instead of picking up a drink, call your sponsor, go to a meeting, share your struggles.
Replacing the routine.
Exactly. And the reward. It's complex, but includes companionship, relief from stress, self-acceptance, the ability to talk things through, things they might have sought from alcohol.
Same cues, same rewards, different routine.
But there's one more absolutely critical piece for AA and for making any difficult habit change stick.
What's that?
Belief. You have to believe change is possible.
Belief. How does AA foster that?
Primarily through the group. Seeing other people just like you who have successfully changed. hearing their stories. It creates hope. There's this story of a guy, John, struggled for years, finally committed after a near-tragic car accident involving his son.
Oh, wow.
What finally clicked for him in AA wasn't just the steps, it was seeing others succeed and feeling a sense of purpose when he helped set up for meetings. He started to believe sobriety was possible for him too. As one psychologist put it, change occurs among other people.
So that community, that shared experience, builds the belief that reinforces the new habit loop. It's not just mechanics, it's psychology, maybe even spirituality.
Absolutely. Belief is the foundation that makes the new routine sustainable, especially when things get tough.
Okay, so individuals can change habits using the loop, craving, and belief. Does this scale up? Like companies have habits, and can you change those?
Oh, definitely. Organizations are riddled with habits, routines, procedures, cultural norms that happen almost automatically. And yes, you can change them, often by focusing on what are called keystone habits.
Keystone habits, like the central stone in an arch.
Exactly. Small changes are habits that, when altered, trigger a cascade of other changes throughout the system. Paul O'Neill at Alcoa is the classic example.
The aluminum company.
Yeah. When he became CEO in '87, Alcoa was struggling. Wall Street was skeptical. His first speech, he didn't talk profits or synergy. He talked about worker safety.
Safety. That seems indirect.
It seemed crazy to analysts, but O'Neill announced one single overriding goal: 0 injuries. Worker safety was going to be the keystone habit.
How did that change anything beyond, well, safety?
Think about it. To achieve 0 injuries, you can't just put up posters. You have to understand why injuries happen. That means analyzing the manufacturing process, improving communication between floors and management, making sure workers feel empowered to report problems before they cause accidents.
Ah, okay. So focusing on safety forced changes in communication, process analysis, maybe even hierarchy.
Totally. It led to revamped procedures, better training, new ways for executives and workers to interact. Quality went up, efficiency improved. Even things like who got the best parking spots changed to reward proactive safety suggestions. And guess what?
Profits went up.
Massively.
Yeah.
Alcoa's market value quintupled under O'Neill. Focusing on that one keystone habit transformed the entire company culture and performance.
That's incredible. A single focus rippling outwards, but that must take enormous willpower, right? From everyone involved. Is willpower just something you have or don't?
That's the common idea, but research suggests willpower is more like a skill, something that can be learned and strengthened, and organizations can actually help build it. Take Starbucks.
Okay, coffee and willpower.
Yeah. They invest heavily in training their employees, especially managers. Think about someone like Travis Leach, who they mention in the book. Came from a rough background. Parents were addicts. Starbucks didn't just teach him how to make lattes.
Right.
They taught him self-discipline. They have specific training focused on navigating inflection points.
Inflection points.
Those moments of stress or temptation, the angry customer, the busy rush, the personal problem bleeding into work. Starbucks teaches employees routines for handling these moments calmly and professionally. They essentially help turn self-control into an organizational habit.
So they're training willpower like a muscle.
In a way, yes. And it's not just about brute force. There was that fascinating study with Scottish patients getting hip or knee replacements. Really painful recovery requires lots of tough rehab exercises.
I can imagine.
The patients who recovered fastest weren't necessarily the toughest or most motivated. They were the ones who were asked to do one simple thing beforehand: write down detailed plans.
Plans? Like what?
Like, when my knee starts hurting during my walk, I will take deep breaths and focus on my goal. Then I will rest for 5 minutes before continuing. They anticipated the pain points and wrote out specific routines for how they'd handle them.
So they design their willpower in advance.
Exactly. Having a plan, feeling a sense of control, actually makes exercising self-control less draining. It automates the response to predictable challenges.
That's powerful. Plan for the tough spots. But what about when organizational habits aren't just inefficient, but downright dangerous, like deeply embedded bad habits?
That's often where, tragically, crisis becomes the catalyst for change. The King's Cross Station fire in London is a chilling example.
Oh, right. The underground fire. Terrible.
Terrible. And investigations found it wasn't just one thing. It was a collection of ingrained dysfunctional habits across different departments. The staff who first saw the small fire under the escalator. Their ingrained habit was not to call the fire brigade directly unless it was major. Unwritten rules. Communication between departments was terrible because of turf wars. The maintenance teams didn't deal with, say, layers of flammable paint because it wasn't their job. These rigid habits, these unspoken truces, allowed a small fire to erupt into a deadly flashover. 31 people died.
Just awful. How do you even begin to fix habits that ingrained and that broken?
Sometimes, sadly, it takes a crisis of that magnitude to shake the system apart. Crises create urgency. They expose the failures of the old ways and make people, even entire organizations, suddenly open to radical change.
So the breakdown forces a rebuild.
It can. Look at Rhode Island Hospital. They had years of internal conflict, surgeons resisting checklists, nurses afraid to speak up. Then a series of high-profile medical errors created a full-blown crisis.
Public outcry. Lawsuit.
Exactly. Suddenly, reforms they'd fought for years, like mandatory checklists or video recording surgeries, became possible because the crisis made the status quo untenable.
Yep.
It echoes what Rahm Emanuel said after the 2008 financial crisis.
Ah, the famous quote.
You never want a serious crisis to go to waste. It's cynical, maybe, but true. Crises break inertia. They allow leaders to finally tackle those toxic habits and rebuild.
A painful but sometimes necessary catalyst. So, okay, we've seen habits in individuals, in organizations, triggered by cues, driven by cravings, changed by belief or crisis.
Yeah.
But aren't these patterns also being, well, used on us, manipulated?
Oh, absolutely. Companies spend fortunes understanding and shaping our habits. Think about the grocery store layout. Why is the fresh produce almost always right at the entrance?
I always thought it was just nice to see the healthy stuff first.
That's part of the psychology. Fruits and veggies bruise easily. Logically, they should maybe go in your cart last. But marketers know if you load up on kale and apples first.
You feel virtuous.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that little subconscious pat on the back makes you feel licensed to toss the chips, the cookies, the ice cream into your cart later with less guilt. It's a deliberate setup.
Wow. Okay, that's subtle. Does it get more targeted?
Oh, much more. Target, the retailer, they got famously good at predicting pregnancy.
Right, I heard about this. Based on shopping habits.
Purely. They built algorithms analyzing buying patterns. A sudden shift to unscented lotion, buying cotton balls, maybe supplements like magnesium or zinc. Combine enough of these subtle shifts, especially for a woman in her 20s.
And they could pinpoint it.
With frightening accuracy. They could estimate the due date and start sending targeted coupons for diapers and cribs, sometimes before the woman had even announced it to her family. They learned to mix those ads in subtly with other random offers so it didn't feel too creepy, but yeah, they know.
That's unsettling. How deep the analysis goes. What about other areas like entertainment, music?
Definitely. The music industry figured out long ago why some songs become huge hits, even people don't necessarily love them initially. They talk about sticky songs,
Sticky.
songs that just stick in your head. They leverage our brain's craving for familiarity. Our auditory cortex is constantly trying to find patterns in sound, make sense of the noise. Familiar patterns feel safe, comfortable.
So a song that sounds kind of like something we already know.
Is easier for our brain to latch onto. Radio stations, streaming algorithms, they use this. They sandwich a new song between two massive familiar hits, or they play songs with familiar structures or sounds. It makes you less likely to change the station or skip the track because it feels comfortable, even if it's new. Your brain likes the familiar.
So it's like dressing something new in old clothes, making the unfamiliar feel familiar.
Exactly. That's a powerful strategy for introducing anything new, not just music. Remember the example from World War II. The government needed people to eat organ meats, liver, kidneys, because muscle meat was needed for soldiers.
Ew, yeah, tough sell.
Very tough sell back then. So how did they market it? They brought in anthropologists, psychologists.
And what was the trick?
Frame it within the familiar. They encouraged housewives to prepare organ meats in ways that looked and felt like familiar dishes. Serve liver like you'd serve a steak. Tuck kidneys into savory pies. Make the strange seem normal.
Make the unfamiliar familiar. That seems like a fundamental principle, not just for marketing, but for how ideas spread in society, too.
Absolutely. It connects directly to how societal habits form and change. Think about the Montgomery bus boycott. Rosa Parks' Braid Act was the spark, obviously.
A pivotal moment.
Hugely pivotal. But why did that specific incident ignite such a massive, sustained movement when other similar acts hadn't?
Good question.
It had a lot to do with Rosa Parks herself and her social network. She wasn't just some random person. She was deeply respected, well-connected within the community. She had extensive, strong ties.
Strong ties, meaning close friends, family.
Right. People she knew well, who trusted her, who felt obligated to support her when she was arrested. That activated her immediate circle. But crucially, she also had many weak ties.
Weak ties, like acquaintances.
Exactly. People she knew casually from church, from activist groups, from her work. These weak ties are incredibly important because they bridge different social circles. They spread information beyond the initial cluster of friends.
Ah, so the strong ties mobilize the core, and the weak ties spread it outwards to new groups.
Precisely. Her specific social position, with both strong and weak ties, allowed the boycott message to spread rapidly and widely, tapping into existing social habits of community support and peer pressure, creating a movement that could sustain itself.
That's fascinating, the structure of social connections as a kind of societal habit loop. Has anyone else consciously used that understanding?
Oh, yes. Rick Warren, the pastor who founded Saddleback Church, he grew it into one of the largest megachurches in the country.
How did he apply these ideas?
He was inspired early on by seeing how missionaries sometimes had more success converting entire groups or villages rather than individuals one by one. He realized people adopt beliefs and behaviors often based on their social circles, their social habits.
So he targeted groups.
He focused on creating small groups within the church, building community. He designed services with music people liked, messages that resonated with their daily lives. He made the church a place where people felt they belonged, where their friends were, where joining felt familiar and socially rewarding.
Leveraging those social habits, strong and weak ties, to grow the church organically.
Exactly. It became a self-perpetuating movement, much like the boycott, built on understanding how people connect and influence each other within groups.
Okay, this brings us to a really deep question then. We've got individual habits, organizational habits, societal habits. All these powerful, often subconscious patterns driven by cues, cravings, rewards, social ties. How much room does that leave for, free will?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? And the answer is, well, it's incredibly complicated. Look at the story of Angie Bachman.
The gambling addiction case.
Yeah. She ended up hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, lost her inheritance, got sued by the casino. Was she making free choices? Or was she caught in a compulsive habit loop, relentlessly exploited by the casino?
How did the casino exploit it?
Casinos are masters of habit design. The lights, the sounds, the near misses. Slot machines are programmed to give you lots of small wins and frequent near misses where it looks like you almost won big. Neurologically, a near miss triggers a similar brain response to an actual win. It keeps you hooked, feeding the craving, reinforcing the habit loop, even as you're losing overall.
So they're hijacking the brain's reward system.
Absolutely. Now, contrast Bachman's case with Brian Thomas, the man who tragically killed his wife while apparently sleepwalking during a nightmare.
Oh, I remember that case. He thought she was an intruder.
Yes. He had a history of sleep terrors. Experts testified he was essentially acting unconsciously, his brain caught between sleep and wakefulness, not in control. Prosecutors eventually dropped the charges.
So one person is held responsible for actions driven by habit. The other isn't because the action was deemed unconscious. Where's the line?
That's the dilemma. If habits operate largely outside our conscious awareness, driven by the basal ganglia, how responsible are we? Especially when outside forces like casinos or marketers are actively trying to trigger those habits. It raises profound legal and ethical questions about choice and culpability.
It really does. It's this fundamental paradox, isn't it? Habits are these incredibly powerful, often invisible forces shaping almost everything we do. But the research also shows they aren't set in stone. They can be changed. They are malleable.
That's the core tension and the hope.
So wrapping this all up, the big message from this deep dive seems clear. Yeah, habits run deep. They shape our lives enormously, but they aren't destiny.
Not at all. They are ultimately what you choose them to be, or perhaps what you choose to make them.
Right. It takes work.
It definitely takes work. But the good news is we have a pretty clear framework now, thanks to all this research, that four-step process we talked about.
Okay, let's recap that. 4 steps to change a habit.
Right. First, identify the routine. What's the specific behavior you want to change? Be precise.
Okay. Step 1.
Second, experiment with rewards. This is crucial. What are you really craving? Is it the sugar, the distraction, the social connection? Play around. Test different rewards to figure out the true driver.
Find the real itch. Step 2.
Third, isolate the cue. What trigger sets off the routine? Is it a time of day, a location, an emotion, a person? Seeing the pattern is key.
Nail down the trigger. Step 3.
And finally, fourth, have a plan. Once you know the cue, the routine, and the reward, design a new routine. Write it down. Decide explicitly what you will do instead when the cue hits.
Plan the new path. Step 4, identify, experiment, isolate, plan.
Exactly. It's not magic, and it's often not easy, especially at first. But understanding those pieces, really analyzing your own loops, gives you the power to start redesigning them. It gives you control.
And it comes back to that idea of belief, too, doesn't it? Like William James realized himself after his own struggles. He basically said,
Yeah, something like, if you believe, you can change. If you make believing itself a habit.
the change becomes real. That act of faith powers the process. It reminds me, of that famous David Foster Wallace story, the fish story.
Oh, yeah, the two young fish.
Right. They're swimming along, an older fish swims by and says, "Morning, boys. How's the water?"
Uh-huh.
And the young fish swing on for a bit, then one turns to the other and asks,
What the hell is water?
Exactly. We're often completely unaware of the most obvious, important realities around us. The water we swim in every day. And so often, that water is made up of our habits, our automatic thoughts, routines, assumptions.
That's a perfect analogy.
So maybe the invitation for everyone listening is to think about that. What's your water? What are those hidden habits, those automatic ways of being that define your daily reality, maybe without you even noticing? And once you start to see the water, maybe you can start thinking about how you might want to change it. Because as we've seen, you can. Your habits are what you choose them to be.